Welcome to Planet People, a podcast that aims to inspire curiosity and cultivate a deeper connection with the natural world.
We are thrilled to be sharing stories with you that highlight the beauty and importance of protecting our planet's wildlife.
Be sure to follow us on social media and your favorite podcast streaming platform so that you never miss an episode. Hey, Coral.
Good morning, Natalie.
How are you?
I'm doing all right here on this Monday morning.
Yes, a bit of a gloomy Monday.
Yeah.
Finishing out these records for you guys.
It's Wednesday for our listeners, so happy Hump Day. We should probably do a fun thing for Hump Day. Let's
do a little Hump Day fun.
Yeah.
Maybe like, what's your spirit animal today?
What is my spirit animal today? What's yours while I think about it?
I feel like the first thing that came to my mind when I said Hump Day was a camel.
Yeah.
Because I got them humps, honey.
What other animals have weird humps?
That's actually a good question.
Yeah. What do you think? Honestly, tortoises do.
The tortoises do kind of have humps. I didn't want to say tortoise because I felt like that was...
But no, it's spot on for this episode with
That's also
Mary
true.
Lane Poe with the Desert Tortoise Council. So I think it's pretty spot. I'm going to say tortoise.
Yeah, tortoise and camels are also both very good at hoarding water, so to speak. It's like an adaptation for being in the desert that they can retain water really well. So I think they're both fitting for our desert-themed Hump Day episode.
Yes.
I love that. Yeah. Mary Lane was a great guest, too. She was so informative. I really enjoyed our discussion with her. And she's been another inspiration of mine. I found her through Instagram as well. And her passion for desert conservation spoke to me. And I hadn't found many other creators online sharing about desert conservation, and she was one of them. As an independent contractor as well, we both do that desert tortoise work and have worked in the field together once before. So it felt like a natural conversation to include her on the show.
Yeah, and she's a wonderful representative of the Desert Tortoise Council, which they played a huge role in getting the desert tortoise on the endangered species list.
Yes, that's right. The Desert Tortoise Council is a foundational group that really pioneered so many techniques to protect the desert tortoise on the field, in a political landscape, advocating for tortoises. In the 1990s, that's when the tortoise was actually listed as threatened. And now, fast forward to 2024, I think it was in April of 2024 that it was listed as endangered. But I think maybe that process took a little bit longer. But anyways, we talk a lot about those efforts that the DTC, Desert Tortoise Council, has been very involved in a grassroots way.
Yeah, and we also talk about the different educational courses that they offer, one that you actually took through them.
Yes.
And ones that they are hoping to have in the future.
Yes, if you're listening and you're a conservationist looking to get their career started working in wildlife, I highly, highly recommend getting the Desert Tortoise Council certification. It's like a program that you take, and you don't actually get like a piece of paper that certifies you. But if you want to work in environmental consulting in the Southwest, this is a great first start. So make sure you listen to this episode to really learn about these resources at your disposal that the DTC provides. And they host this certification just once a year. So make sure that you sign up early.
And so Freaker Force, we actually cover tortoises on our Freaker Force segments on a different episode. So let's talk about camels, since it's this Hump Day thing that we have going on.
Freaker Force for a camel, I would say a freak, because they spit that water. They spit out water at you and like spit on you.
And
have huge tongues. They have huge tongues.
Is it the camels that spit or llamas?
I thought it was camels. I think they both spit.
I think they both spit.
I'm going to fact check this right now, though.
I feel like they're freaks because of the humps. And
yeah,
just
also the humps.
I just think that they're freaks of nature because they can, like we said, like hold water for so long. And it's like they're kind of the only creature that you can cross an entire desert with, which is just crazy.
Now that's the force.
That is the force.
That's the force that they can trek through, sandy deserts. That's what I imagine when I see a camel. They're just on the hills with their silhouette in the background, with their humps carrying people and supplies. That is a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah.
Okay, so I fact-checked the camel spitting thing. Yes, camels do spit, and it's not just saliva. It's often a mixture of stomach contents and saliva.
Oh.
So you don't want to be
gross
spit in the face by a camel. I guess it's a defense mechanism, though, that they use when they feel threatened or, agitated, but that's all. Yeah. Wait, what?
What?
It's a way for them it's a way for them to surprise, distract, or bother whatever they perceive as a threat. Okay.
I did get spat on by a llama once when I was a kid.
Oh my God. I feel like I would never forget that.
It didn't deter me away from llamas. I still think they're really cute and fun. But I'm pretty sure I was just being an annoying kid and probably pulled on their hair or something,
So funny.
Awesome. Well, let's get right to it with the Desert Tortoise Council and Mary Lane Poe.
We hope you guys enjoy. Hello, Mary Lane. Thank you so much for joining the show today. I actually know Mary Lane because we used to kind of cross paths in the environmental consulting world. And I think both of our passionate voices were eventually going to find each other somehow. And I'm just so excited to have you on the show. Welcome, Mary Lane.
Great. Thank you guys for having me. I'm so excited to have this conversation. Yeah, Natalie and I never met in the field, but I think somehow our online energy and love of tortoises and advocacy just kind of brought us together. So here we are.
Isn't that the beautiful power of social media and networking? And I'm so glad that it's come full circle to finally be able to have you on the show and share everything that you're doing with the Tortoise Council and your years of experience as a wildlife biologist. It's going to be a great episode.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, amazing. Let's burrow our way in.
Perfect. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and, introduce yourself. What do you do on a day-to-day and what's your role like with the Desert Tortoise Council?
Sure. My name is Mary Lane Poe. I live in St. George, Utah, near Zion National Park. I'm a wildlife biologist and outdoor advocate. I spent about 15 years working in the field, hands-on with desert tortoises, as well as plants. I also am a botany lover. And recently, this last year, made the switch to project management. So after 15 years of being on the road, being all over the desert Southwest, I am home now here in St. George. And I love working from home, and I'm transitioning into learning about, going from in the field and being hands-on to learning about how to manage these projects and kind of the overarching themes there. And it's been really fantastic. I enjoy it a lot.
That's great. I'm so happy to hear that you've made that switch from fieldwork into project management, because you and I both know from our experience together out in Desert Center and Coachella Valley how rough it can be to be in the field. And it honestly just feels like sometimes we're on the front lines of this conservation battle with trying to protect the tortoise. And it's a love-hate relationship with doing field work, because we're passionate and we want to help and be out there, but it's nice to have the peace of your home. And St. George is beautiful. I'm sure you must love being there.
I do love it. I definitely miss seeing those sunrises and sunsets every day out in the field, but it's so fun to be home. St. George is a great little community. It's kind of the edge of the frontier for the desert tortoises. So it's kind of fun to be over here, representing the Tortoise Council and the tortoise community here in Utah. They don't get as much attention over here as they do in the Mojave Desert proper. So it's been fun to kind of have a presence here and network with local organizations and kind of have more of a grounded presence.
Absolutely. And, community is everything, especially in the conservation world. And that's something we talk a lot about on the show is community-based conservation. And I think you and I both share this love of wanting to communicate with people and advocate for a better planet for people and for animals, and especially the desert tortoise. I think oftentimes gets overlooked, maybe not as much now, but, in comparison to sea turtles, they don't get as much attention, in my opinion. So it's great that you can really, build roots there and get involved and represent the Desert Tortoise Council.
Yeah, absolutely. And I should have added, in addition to working with the Desert Tortoise Council, and being a wildlife biologist and project manager, outdoor advocacy is definitely something that is super important to me. I really try hard to be an advocate for conservation initiatives. It's been really great to be home in Utah and focus on issues that are a little more close to home. And I'm also a member of the BLM Resource Advisory Council here in Utah. I represent environmental organizations. So that program is on pause right now. Fingers crossed they get their funding in for next year. But that's been a really fantastic way to network with people from all different walks of life and kind of try and bring a new perspective to them for conservation. Utah is very different than California, where I lived before. And so it's been really interesting to represent the Tortoise Council and the conservation community in that way.
I can only imagine. I'm sure is Utah more focused on outdoor recreation and people kind of utilizing the environment in a different way, I imagine?
Absolutely. Yeah. Everybody wants to use public lands and the way they want to use them. And that's actually been really important for me to recognize, to be a little less judgmental and recognize that everybody's reason for wanting to utilize public lands is different. And it's easy to come in and say, this group is wrong and this group is wrong. And my opinion is more important. And I do think that at the end of the day, but it's really great to be diplomatic and try and, just have open and honest conversations with folks. But yeah, lots of OHV use, lots of people love to go out and shoot out on public lands here. And then resource extraction is huge. The BLM, that's one of their directives is to manage the land for resource extraction as well. So that Resource Advisory Council brings people from every single one of those user groups and industries to kind of come together and think about how can we make these things work to benefit everybody.
A harmonious solution in play.
That's a great point. And I'm so happy that you are on these boards, and also disappointed to hear that you said that they're no longer meeting this year because they lost funding. Is that correct?
Yeah, these resource advisory councils are, you have to apply to be on them and you get approved through the Department of the Interior all the way up in Washington. It's a whole thing. It's like a very official process, almost like you're an elected official, but without having to go through an election process. And while the Resource Advisory Council component hasn't been specifically addressed by anyone yet, the issue is funding. The BLM is certainly being asked to get creative with their funding right now. They've certainly lost some staff. So their ability to just host these kinds of programs is limited. And we usually do them in person. So we'll travel all around the state 3 or 4 times a year. That way we can visit with the different federal land management agency representatives in that region. But they don't have any funding for travel or extra things right now. So we'll see what happens. I'm hoping that we at least get to continue virtually because I think the conversations are really important.
I love that you touch on the different user groups and coming together and how that's changed your own perspective on how to find a solution that satisfies all these different stakeholders involved. And ultimately, that's the human component of conservation, is how do we all use the land?
Absolutely. I'm 36 now, but when I was a teenager and in college in my early 20s, I was very in your face, aggressive, the conservation is the only thing. Yes, the activist, and just I'm going to shove it down your throat. We're going to protect this. And I think we all go through that phase. And I think a lot of people stay in that phase. And I think that's great because you need people with those really loud voices to keep pushing things forward. But I've been in the industry so long, and I spent several years working at a military base as their wildlife biologist. And that was really eye-opening for me, just to learn that sometimes coming in with a softer touch, and finding places to have mutual respect is going to get you a lot further in the long run. It may feel like you're compromising pieces of yourself that are critically important to you, but I think that when you're asking other people to compromise pieces of themselves and things that are important to them, there just has to be some give and take there. So it's definitely an interesting balance, and my strategy has changed a lot over the years. It's really important to me to make sure people feel heard, in the hopes that they will hear me.
Well said.
Yeah, that was very well said.
I can tell you've reflected
really
a lot.
Important. I have. It's really important, and I'm really active on social media, and so it's something I see a lot. It's something I try and talk about with folks. I mean, I would never want to dampen somebody's fire. Like I said, we need everybody at every energy level, but there has to be like a core group of people in the middle, that kind of like, I'm as progressive as they come, if you just ask me my opinion. But I've learned that I have to just think about the way that I'm presenting myself and engaging in conversations if I want to have meaningful change in my community, especially in some of the communities that I've been in over the years, like somewhere like Utah.
Totally. Yeah. Well, it's like you're playing the long game, and instead of being this like giant, fire that's, like burning down the Christmas tree, boom, aggressive in your face, how you're saying, you're more like, this steady going fire that you're tending all the time. And it's honestly, it feels like a more sustainable approach, and one that we definitely need. Not to say that the other approach isn't needed as well, like you said, but I appreciate what you're doing and playing the long game.
Not an easy thing to do.
It's not. It's definitely a long game for sure. Like when I was newer to the industry, I had a friend that was adamant about correcting everybody that called tortoises turtles, or that called them turtles. Yeah. And he'd always be like, it's tortoise, not turtle. And you could just see in the interactions that the people he was saying that to were immediately like, oh,
turned off.
This guy. And I mean, he, that's fair. Like tortoises are turtles, I guess. But it's like tortoise, it's a funny word. Like turtle just sounds, it rolls off the tongue a little bit better than tortoise. That was a good learning experience for me, because I got to see firsthand how that kind of abrasiveness can just really turn people off right away. And then they're not listening to what you're saying, because they're like, this person's rude, or this person thinks they're better than me or something.
Yeah, there's an air about it. So speaking of tortoises, and something that I did not know that you just said, so is it sort of like a square and rectangle situation? Like some turtles some turtles are tortoises, but not all tortoises are turtles, versus like a square, like all rectangles are squares, but not all. Wait, I'm saying it wrong. You get what I mean.
Yes, I do. And this actually might be a better question for Natalie, because now I'm second guessing myself.
Yeah, I'm second guessing myself too.
Tortoises are land dwelling turtles, essentially. The tortoises come from the turtle family, but turtles inherently have a water component. They need water to survive, whether they're living in the water, they're living in climates that have water available to them. Tortoises are land-dwelling creatures. You're never going to find them in water. So tortoises do technically come from the turtle family, but turtles are not going to be tortoises, because they need that water to survive, that water element we are missing here in the desert.
Right. The Desert Tortoise Council, you're working there now. Give us a little insight into the Desert Tortoise Council, what you guys do, and your role there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Desert Tortoise Council is a wonderful organization, a really fantastic nonprofit. They were started in 1975 by a small team of biologists from Southern California that were just really passionate. And this was way before tortoises were protected under the Endangered Species Act, but they got together and realized that there was a lot of threats to desert tortoises. The desert was seeing lots of rapid change. And so it started off very small at first and has grown to be a force in our industry, which is really fantastic. Desert tortoise work is very interesting. A lot of things you can just go to school, you can get a degree, or you can go to a technical college, or you can get a certification. Desert tortoises are not like that. Sure, you can go and study wildlife biology, you can do your master's thesis on something specific to desert tortoises, but there's not a lot of institutional resources available if you are a desert tortoise biologist or advocate. So the Tortoise Council is really kind of the glue that holds the tortoise community together. And there's several organizations that we work with, but they have been really fantastic. I have been volunteering with them for about 4 years now. I started off as a volunteer on a committee. So they have all sorts of committees, and then they have the board of directors. So I had heard that they were in desperate need of help with their social media about 4 years ago. And I'm social media addict myself. And I said, this is a great way that I could give back. And I had been really interested in getting more involved in the tortoise community because I felt really passionate about the lack of training opportunities available for folks in our community. And we can get into that later, the authorized biologist and kind of the hierarchy within the desert tortoise community and what you need to progress in your career. And so I kind of thought, well, I'm too young to be on the board of directors. It's a bunch of people that are very senior in their career, experts, but I'll join as a volunteer on this committee. And so I did that, and I took over their social media accounts for a couple of years. We had a small team of social media gals, and we put together all the posts, and that was really fun. And then after about 2 years, I had been working with another gal who was on the board. She was like, you need to join the board. She's younger, and she's like, we need more young folks. We need more. We just need to continue to move the Tortoise Council into the future. We have this amazing team of people that have been here forever that know everything, but some of them are starting to retire. Some of them are starting to kind of move on, and we need this next generation of people that are going to be committed. So I joined the board almost exactly 2 years ago, and it's just been a really fun time. It's been very interesting. It's a great learning experience. There's all sorts of personalities, and we deal with so many things. I mean, the Tortoise Council really just tries to do so many things. So it's been a great learning experience. It's been a great networking experience, getting to work hand in hand with some of the industry experts and leaders in our field, and getting to just learn from them and work with them one-on-one. And then likewise, trying to bring in more new faces and younger folks and kind of spread our mission. The people that came before us have put in an incredible amount of time. It's just wild how much some people have given to desert tortoises and given to the conservation community. And it's super important for me to continue that.
I just think it's so important, the work that the Tortoise Council is doing for the same reasons that you just mentioned, carrying on this mission into the future, recruiting the next generation, and it's all to come back to help the desert tortoise, which so desperately does need our help. And as unconventional as it is, I mean, you really hit the nail on the head, saying that there's not a lot of institutional resources to get a career started as a desert tortoise biologist. And I can attest to that because all of my work experience with desert tortoises has just been through word of mouth. It's not really a very obvious pathway to get involved in doing desert tortoise conservation. So how does the Desert Tortoise Council offer ways for people like me who are starting out, I guess maybe younger than me now since I've been doing it for a while, but what are some resources that our listeners can tap into if they want to get involved with the Tortoise Council?
Yeah, absolutely. The Tortoise Council is doing all sorts of things in the community. We need lots of volunteers. There's so many different ways to get involved, even on a small scale. One thing I really encourage people to do is follow us on social media, like our posts, comment on our posts. That's something that we're really trying to focus on right now. Not only does social media allow us to share our message, it's a great way for us to network with other organizations in the community and build the collective voice that we have. So I never underestimate the power of social media. And that's the number one thing that I tell folks, especially, younger folks that I know have an online presence. That's something that you can do that is so simple that really helps us and helps us have an impact in our community and helps us be able to amplify the voices of other organizations that we work with. We also have our Desert Tortoise introductory course. I think most people have, a lot of people in the tortoise world have taken that. That's a fantastic resource that our team has been hosting for years. That's for educators, students, environmental consultants, people that work for energy companies, anybody that's working in the realm of desert tortoise. That's a great place to start, is to come and take that course, and that can kind of help you guide the way that you approach working with desert tortoises. We have our annual symposium event that we've just held in February in Las Vegas. I encourage anybody that wants to get involved with desert tortoise things to come to that symposium. You really can't put a price tag on being in a room with 300 other people from academia, from federal agencies, land managers, scientists, students, environmental consultants. And not only are you learning so much, it's, we're always presenting the most up-to-date scientific information for folks and giving them tools that they'll need to do their work with desert tortoises, but it's just a great way to network and to meet people and to look for jobs and make friends and chat one-on-one with land managers. So I'm always recommending the symposium. And as far as if people really want to get involved at a volunteer level, we are always looking for volunteers. You can start off on a committee. You can start off volunteering at the symposium. We need tons of help with that every year. You get a free ticket to the symposium. You get free lodging if you need it. And that is very helpful. You can volunteer on a committee if you're not ready to join at a board level. And that's a great way to get some exposure to some of the work that we're doing. And then we're also currently short a few board members. We are currently short a membership director and a treasurer. So if anybody out there listening has those skills or knows anybody that does, please let us know. Joining the board has really been fantastic. I recommend it for anybody. It is a time commitment for sure, but it's just an incredible way to just grow as not only a biologist or a lover of desert tortoises, if you're not a biologist, but just in terms of growing your overall skills.
Thank you so much for providing those resources. The membership director position sounds kind of interesting. Maybe I'll have to touch base with you after the call.
Yeah,
I definitely want to volunteer more of my time once I'm finished with spring's field work. This season has been crazy so far, but I would love to get more involved too. I'm inspired by our conversation. I'm like, I need to do more with the volunteering community, and I want to hear more about what it's like to work with Christine Berry. I mean, she is like the OG tortoise conservation expert. I'm sure you've probably had some pretty cool interactions with her, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, getting to that is a huge highlight for sure. Getting to learn from so many folks. Christine Berry is just a legend, and the amount of time that she has dedicated and how much of herself she's given up to the community is really admirable. Looking up to the folks on our board, these folks that have been there for decades, and just seeing how passionate they are is really motivating. It definitely keeps me engaged, and just listening to these these guys talk, the way they form their sentences, the way they write their emails, it's different, it's different than the way people in their 20s, 30s, 40s speak. Things are changing so quickly now with technology and social media, and everything is virtual and everything is online. And we're also nonchalant, we're all just friends hanging out, like having these conversations. And I love that. But there's also something to this kind of old school, very professional, very academia. It's very scientific energy that they bring. And the Tortoise Council is very, like by the books, like we vote on everything. We do, like, it's very interesting. It's different from other board positions that I've had that are a little more loose, just kind of like groups of people. It's a very professional run board, and it's been really interesting to learn about that, and to just have some exposure to some of these folks that have so much knowledge.
Incredible. I guess, does this mean then that you're a part of the tortoise mafia? Is that still discussed in the tortoise world? I don't want to blow the cover here, but...
That's funny. Yeah, I don't know. I definitely remember when I was out in the field, I was like, the tortoise kings and queens.
It's such a thing.
Right? It is such a thing.
It's such a thing.
I absolutely don't know what this is. What are we talking about here?
It's just an interesting vibe in the tortoise world. You have to go through, so I don't even know how to describe it.
I know,
there's
right?
There's just some people that have been around forever, that have been doing this for 50 years, and they know everything, and they are so smart. And not only do they know everything, like, they laid the foundation for where we are now. They fought to have desert tortoise listed as an endangered species. They built the rules, they built the regulations, they built the organizations and the systems that we have now. And a lot of them still go out and work in the field, and they're very hands-on. And yeah, it's a huge mix of personalities. So it's always kind of like, oh, there's that's the tortoise mafia. It's a whole vibe.
It's a whole vibe. Sure. It's a whole vibe. It's like, if you know.
Yeah.
That's great, though.
Yeah.
I mean, they have done so much incredible work. Like, when was the tortoise listed? Was that in 1990 that it was listed? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And now it was just recently listed again almost a year ago, right? As critically endangered, from threatened to endangered. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have any, input on helping with that advocacy effort to get it listed again?
No, I had contributed to some comment letters that we put through, but I haven't had a hand in that, really.
Well, it's good that they have more protections.
Cheering from the sidelines.
Absolutely. We're all just cheerleaders for conservation here.
Yeah.
I guess this could be a good segue into like the threats of desert tortoises, but we can also talk a little bit about their ecological importance on the landscape. If you feel comfortable talking about, their keystone species characteristics, and we could go into threats from there.
Yeah, absolutely. The Desert Tortoise Council is, committed to protecting tortoises and their habitat across the range. There are several different species of desert tortoise. I think most tortoise biologists are focused on the Mojave desert tortoise. That one is the one that has the endangered protections. There are a couple of other types. And then the Tortoise Council has also been working the last couple of years with the Bolson tortoise initiatives that are happening in New Mexico.
Incredible.
Which is kind of outside of our normal area of expertise in the Mojave, but they're doing some really cool things in New Mexico, trying out some different strategies to get desert tortoises back on the landscape there. So it's a super fun thing that they're doing. The desert tortoise is a really interesting species for sure. Very different from a lot of other reptiles. They have this big shell that is great. It protects their little soft bodies underneath, but it's also cumbersome and it makes them move really slow. Reptiles can be slow, generally speaking, but they can also be fast. You see little lizards, they're darting all over the place. Snakes, you usually just see them hanging out, but they can move quickly if they want to. So the tortoises are in this unique category where they have this extra level of protection that other reptiles don't have, but they're also really slow. And the way their shell is around their body, their legs are really spread out. So they just move slower, which is adorable.
We love a slow tortoise. What are some fun facts about tortoises that maybe people wouldn't know right off the bat that make them so resilient in the desert landscape?
Yeah, there's so many fun facts about tortoise. You mentioned briefly earlier that they are a keystone species. A lot of biologists know what that means, but a lot of folks that aren't don't know what that means. And a keystone species is just a species that's really critical to the environment that it thrives in. It's a good indicator of health, and what that means is that other species rely on the existence and presence of desert tortoises for their own survival. And the biggest way that tortoises kind of contribute to that makes the biggest thing that makes them a keystone species is their ability to dig burrows. So they have these, chunky little legs with these like pretty intense claws, and their legs are really flat on the side, so they're just biologically designed to be able to dig holes in the desert. It's actually adorable. If you ever catch one making a little burrow and they're just like using their arms like this and dirt's just flying up behind them, it's so cute. It's like a little construction site. But they make these perfect little holes, and the holes end up looking just like the shape of their shell as they go back. And so a lot of other creatures in the desert don't have that kind of inherent ability to create their own shelter. A lot of critters, are hiding in the shrubs or kind of hiding behind rocks, but you're still out in the elements. So the burrows that the tortoise build are like underground caverns. It's like a tornado shelter. I'm from the South, so in my mind I always think of them as tornado shelters. The Mojave Desert is crazy extreme weather. It gets really hot and it gets really cold, and they build these burrows, and they're really deep and they're very temperature controlled in there, and it helps protect them just from everything that's up above. So I think that's always really interesting, learning that they're a keystone species, because people always say, well, why are they so much more important than other critters in the desert, other reptiles? And I mean, I think every critter in the desert is important, but the keystone species that provide things for other species to thrive is certainly something that's extra special about the tortoise.
It's definitely unique and super important for all other desert animals, because then it creates homes for burrowing owls, snakes. Well, kit fox can build their own burrows, but just to provide that other element beneath the surface of the soil for other animals to survive. It's incredible.
Absolutely. It's fascinating.
So that's what they're providing then. And that's what makes them a keystone species, is these burrowing areas for other animals to abide in. Is that right?
Exactly. Their ability to provide shelter.
Yeah.
Is the biggest thing. And of course, general things, a lot of animals kind of help each other out. Tortoises, their main diet is wildflowers, annual wildflowers. They'll also go to cactus and grasses, and they're kind of moving all over the place. And so they deposit seeds and things all around the desert to kind of help the overall ecosystem. But the shelter is a big one for sure.
Yeah.
It's hard to find good shelter out there in the Mojave Desert sometimes.
Most definitely.
I want to circle back about the course that you guys offer, the Desert Tortoise Council. Are these the things that people will be learning about in the course? And what are some other things that you guys sort of educate and make sure that people are certified in before they're able to use that certification?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll clarify, the introductory course doesn't give you any certification, but it is absolutely something that is really great to have on your resume. People kind of see that on there and are like, okay, this person is serious. So the things that you're going to learn at the introductory course are really everything about desert tortoises. So not only their biology and their life cycle, you're going to learn about their habitats. You're going to learn about threats to their ecosystems and things that you need to be concerned about. So going to dabble a little bit in learning about the environmental regulations that we kind of have to operate with in the industry. And so there's a whole day of lecture components. You get to have lectures from some foremost scientists in our industry. It's really fantastic. And then the second day is a field training. So you have the classroom and then you move into the field and they do simulated tortoise surveys. So you get to practice your skills. We'll set up, kind of a fake course, and we have these kind of like fake tortoise shells and little pieces of tortoise scat and different tortoise sign, and we'll go and put it out on the landscape so people can go and practice, and they'll see you write everything down and then you kind of get graded just for fun, and you can kind of see like, wow, I only saw 5 things and we had 50 out there. I saw 4. So it's a way to train people for tortoise work, which the bulk of right now is survey based. There's certainly all sorts of smaller endeavors happening in academia, scientific research that's happening, plot studies, but the bulk of folks entering this world or that are involved in desert tortoise right now are involved in environmental consulting. Right. So they're building a big solar array out in the desert. They're building a pipeline, and all that's going through desert tortoise habitat. So they have to hire wildlife biologists to come in and survey. So we understand what was there before. And then we monitor during the construction of the solar, whatever energy project it is. A lot of times we have to physically remove the tortoises and translocate them to other areas. And then we also will come in afterwards and monitor those projects for the life of the project and kind of see, what the impacts were and ensure compliance of environmental regulations. So there's a lot going on with tortoises. We want people to know the science, but we also want people to understand the threats and the habitat. And we also need people to understand the environmental regulations so that we know that people that are out monitoring these big construction sites understand what they're monitoring and have the tools that they need to kind of say, oh, this isn't right. This doesn't fall in line with the compliance. So it's a very introductory level because you could probably spend a year learning all of these things, but it's definitely a great opportunity. You'll get a quick dive into kind of every facet of working with desert tortoises from the learning side all the way to the actually practicing things in the field.
Very cool. And so how often are you guys offering that course each year?
We offer that every year. We offer it once in the fall, and it has been fully booked for years now. There's clearly a big desire from the community to learn and grow. And it's really great because when they first started, it was all biologists. And we've really been able to pull in everybody now. So we get a lot of the folks that work at these energy companies that are developing these pipelines or solar arrays, people from the construction companies that are working on these sites. We've really been able to kind of market it to everybody because we're learning that it's so much easier if everybody is invested in the survival of the tortoise versus the biologists just being the only people that know what's going on. And we come in and we're like, and which we should be because it's important to make sure that we're following all the environmental regulations, doing everything that we can. But we're learning the more we teach folks on the other end of these projects, the more invested they get, the more they care, the more they're keeping their eyes peeled. Which is great. We're just trying to get buy-in from all stakeholders to care about the tortoises.
And I can attest to the certification. I went through it back in 2021, and it was a life-changing experience for me. It really was. I really enjoyed the field component, and I had done the lecture part the weekend before through a virtual setting, and that's when I got introduced to like some of the OG tortoise folks, like Pete Woodman, Mari Gold. I think that's her name, right?
Well, there's Maggie Fusari is the gal who does that.
Maggie, yes.
Mari Quillman is our fearless leader. She's
amazing
fantastic as well. Yeah, so you were there during COVID. You were there during the pandemic virtual sessions.
Yeah.
That's good to hear that you still felt like you got some exposure to folks.
I did, definitely. And then I went to Ridgecrest for the following weekend in person, and Pete Woodman led the field component, and we had different, burrow areas too, where we were learning about the types of burrows, the classification of burrows, classification of the tortoise scat. And it's all so interesting, the different components. Like you said, it really touches on so many different elements, not just the tortoise itself, but the environment that it's in, the suitable habitat that it needs to survive, the annual wildflowers present, if there's enough creosote on the landscape, because they use creosote to burrow in. And I really think it's so fascinating, the plant component of tortoise ecology in general, because it's just as important. It's necessary to make sure that we have these annual wildflowers blooming so tortoises can feed on them to survive, etc. But I'm so excited that the certification is, I'm very proud that I have that, and I'm happy to hear that it's going so well still, and people are waitlisting to join. Hopefully some people listening in will be able to tune in.
And just to clarify, it's not a certification.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Do you mind?
It's not technically a certification because there's nothing to be certified in. But I think people often say that because it really is kind of a prerequisite that everybody is looking for. If you're going out as a wildlife biologist, or if you are working on projects in the Mojave Desert, whether you're an environmental consultant or working in a national park or a member of a nonprofit organization that works in desert tortoise habitat, it really is like kind of the gold standard now to go to that. So it's not there's no actual certification, but it is kind of viewed that way.
Yeah.
It has become to be viewed that way. When people see it on their resume, they kind of know like, okay, that person did their due diligence, they're serious. So yes, we love that course. And one of my biggest passions, which I touched on earlier a little bit, is training and education. That's one of my big reasons that I wanted to be on the board. I spent so many years in the field, and Coral, I'm not sure how familiar you are with the desert tortoise industry, but it's very interesting because really anybody can become a desert tortoise biologist. My degree is in international politics. Which is where my outdoor advocacy side comes from. And I did AmeriCorps after college and immediately was like, oh, conservation and science is where I belong. Yeah. And I immediately started working with plant sciences and botany, and kind of grew to become a good little botanist, and was working in that industry. And then I moved to the desert and was exposed to the desert tortoise industry. And I kind of started doing more tortoise surveys. And it's very interesting because the biggest thing you need to be a desert tortoise biologist is a will to survive in the desert, right? Like it's hard to go out in the Mojave Desert and do these surveys. You're hiking all day long. There's all sorts of wildlife. It's extremely hot. You're away from home. We always kind of say we can teach people the science, and that's a new perspective, I will say. And that's maybe where Natalie's mentioning the tortoise mafia. It used to be very scientific based. You have to be an educationally trained biologist, and things are changing, right? Because right now we're in a very weird holding pattern where we have more work than we have biologists.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, there's way more work than biologists right now. So we're trying to pull more people into the industry, and do our best to teach them the science that they need. And folks that have a biology degree, that could be anything. You could have gotten a biology degree in Maine, and that's completely different from the type of habitats and creatures that you'll find in the desert. So really, no matter your background, even if you came from academia or if you came from the National Park Service or some other sort of outdoor field, or you're just trying to get into it, education is a really big component of the Desert Tortoise Council. Education within the community, and making sure that we continue to keep science at the forefront of everything that's happening, because we have so many people that aren't scientifically trained in the industry, both on our side and on the other side, the development, the clients, and the energy companies. So it's really important to us to ensure that the science stays at the forefront. So I am a co-chair for the training committee, and my focus has been to bring more advanced trainings to the table. We have the introductory course, but all we hear from people is we need more. We want more. We used to offer a health assessment training. We haven't been able to offer that in, almost 6 years now. So kind of circling back to how I started this conversation, anybody essentially can start off being like a desert tortoise monitor or a desert tortoise biologist, whether you've come whatever background you can kind of get there. But from there, if you want to progress in your career, the next step is to become an authorized biologist. And that is an actual certification permit process that you are approved by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And then in California, additionally, the California Department of Fish and Game also does approvals. And so you can come in and work on a survey or monitor a project. But if you want to touch a tortoise or handle them or move them or perform a health assessment, you have to have an actual certification, a permit. You have to be listed on a permit to be able to do that. And there's no direct path to getting these authorizations. That's what I was saying earlier. You can't just go get a master's in being an authorized biologist. You can't just take a health assessment training every year because they're just offered all the time. You just have to kind of be strategic and choose the right projects and find people that are willing to mentor you and train you. It's a very bizarre industry. And I think that worked for a long time because it was a really small group of people and there wasn't that much work, but things have exploded now. The desert tortoise world has exploded with the growth of solar and renewable energy in the desert, and we need more advanced training. So I've been working tirelessly for a couple of years now to get more advanced trainings, and it's very, very difficult because advanced trainings require working with actual tortoises, right? So the intro course, no real animals involved, but to have an authorized biologist training or to have a health assessment training, the two things that you need to be approved and be on a permit, there's no direct path to do that. And yeah, it's very challenging. You need live animals. You can only work with the animals 4 months out of the year, fall and spring. You need instructors that are willing to take time out of their work season to come and train you. There's needles and sharps involved to learn how to draw blood and to provide episomic injections. So it's like a logistical nightmare trying to plan these courses. And we were on track to host the next health assessment training for the first time in 6 years this fall. But that has stalled out recently because of everything happening with within the federal nexus and staffing and budget cuts coming to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, as well as the Desert Tortoise Recovery Office. So we're trying to let the dust settle on that a little bit because we do rely on those partners to host these advanced trainings. So my fingers are crossed because we really want to get some of these hands-on learning opportunities into the field. It's critical. Like, how are people supposed to know how to do these types of jobs if there's no way for them to receive that hands-on training in kind of a controlled, professional, scientific atmosphere? It's a big challenge.
Well, one that we're grateful that you're tackling, even if there are these stall outs. My fingers are crossed too that you guys are able to get this underway. And I'm sorry to hear that you guys were planning on that this fall and then it fell through. I'm sure that it sounds like, especially if people are waitlisted for the intro course, I'm sure you'll get the same response for this advanced training.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, we have, and it hasn't happened in 6 years. So we have a huge wait list. It's a smaller subset of people than the intro course because that's really for anybody. And you do have to be at a pretty advanced level to become an authorized biologist. And then even the highest step is a health assessor because you're using the needles. And so it is a small group subset of the biologists in our community, but it's still just like tons and tons of people that are waiting that can't progress in their career until we offer these training certifications for them. And that can be very challenging.
You were in the field for 15 years before this job. Can you speak to, and I know Natalie, you can too, just kind of what that looks like in terms of the safety of these tortoises on these job sites? And have you seen a situation where you need a health assessor on the job?
Yeah, absolutely. When you need a help, so yeah, the projects are very interesting. We'll just talk about solar because that's the biggest kind of project that people have now. When they come in and they want to build a solar farm, a solar array, sure, anybody living out west has seen them. They're taking over, they're all over the place, sea of mirrors off the side of the interstate. And to build that solar, they have to go in and get rid of what's there, right? You have to remove the vegetation, you have to move the critters to make way for the installation of the solar or whatever energy resources there. There are a few projects that have been able to keep the vegetation below the panels. There's some different experimental projects happening, trying to figure out ways that you can save some of that habitat. But by and large, when you see big solar fields, you're losing a ton of habitat. Which is really impactful for the tortoise in a variety of ways. Not only are they losing habitat, the increase in people and construction activity is bringing in more predators, coyotes, badgers, ravens that are feeding off of food subsidies and trash that are left by these construction sites. So there's more predators. Even beyond the loss of habitat and the predator increase, you have an issue of connectivity. And they come in and they are putting a solar across whole valleys, and that eliminates the ability for tortoises to move freely through the habitat. It kind of sections them off into smaller little cohorts, which reduces their ability to have genetic diversity, right? And just like humans, you need genetic diversity to maintain a healthy and viable population. We don't want the same little groups of 2 or 3 tortoises mating. You lose that connectivity. So there's just so many things that are happening on these solar sites that have to be monitored. It's a very delicate dance because you go out and you work on one of these projects, you get hired, you're a biologist, you're here, you want to protect the tortoises, and then they're coming in with bulldozers and you're moving tortoises, and it's very hard to see that. It's very stressful on the tortoises. That's when you would need a health assessor, is if you're going to have to actually move the tortoises to another site. We have to do a health assessment before we move them, after we move them, and then we monitor them for 3 to 5 years so we can understand how these types of translocations are affecting their overall health. But the biologists are going to come in, they're going to come in beforehand, they're going to survey. So you're hiking all day, you're collecting data. Then when the construction phase happens, you're monitoring, you're making sure that they don't ruin desert they're not supposed to ruin, and they stay on roads they're supposed to stay on. You report on, animal mortalities if they happen, unfortunately. It's a very challenging industry. For sure. I think a lot of us kind of justify it by saying, well, these projects are going to happen and I'm going to go out there and do the best job that I can and collect good science so that we have science available, and I'm going to do the best job that I can. But it's very challenging. For sure. It's a very challenging industry to be a part of. It's challenging just to be a desert tortoise biologist and figure out how to progress in your career. And then on top of that, you feel like you're destroying the desert. But there's a lot of renewable energy directives that have came out in the last 10 years. I don't think anybody listening right now can imagine their life without a cell phone, without electricity, without hot running water. So, just thinking about the cost of that and what it's worth, I think renewables have really been pitched as a better alternative to normal energy options. But then you go out on these sites and you see how much habitat loss there is and how much water they're pulling up out of the ground. A lot of times they drill wells on these sites because they have to spray water all day long to mitigate dust for air quality issues. So it's wild. You go out there and you're like, is it better? I don't know. I'm not sure. Why are we doing this? But there are a lot of energy directives, especially in the state of California and even from the federal government that are kind of pushing these to continue to happen. It's a very multifaceted industry, for sure.
It is multifaceted. It's hard to morally feel like this is the best way forward in terms of working on a solar site and translocating tortoises, because ultimately we are taking them out of their home and increasing the risk of maybe not surviving in another environment, which translocations have historically been a little bit problematic for tortoises in terms of them adjusting to a new environment, finding mates, introduction of disease. I mean, this is where it begins to feel multifaceted because of the threats that they face and how we're imposing this renewable energy in their home, right? So how do you find that balance of, okay, this project is going to happen, and I am going to be the one to help make sure that these animals are safe? And how do you feel like you're doing a good job knowing that solar can be, like you said, we don't know if this is the better option, right? But we just kind of have to move forward.
Yeah, I would say there's two components there. I worked as an independent contractor for many years. I've also worked as an employee for many companies. And I would say that it's really important for folks to find work with companies that align with their values. There's a lot of folks that are out there that understand the amount of money that can be made right now in this industry, and that maybe exploit that a little bit, or that focus on the money. And I understand financial security is very important, but I've worked for a lot of different folks. And one of the reasons why I really landed at the company that I'm at right now, which is Ironwood Consulting, is because it felt like they really cared. Things are going to happen regardless, but they are willing to put their foot down. We pore over the environmental regulations. We give our team the tools that they need to do their job the most effectively they can. So that's a huge one. Working for a company that has good values and is willing to stick to them, even in a challenging scenario. The second one is volunteering in my community. I've always been a volunteer girl. I'm from Tennessee. We're the volunteer state. I was in Girl Scouts for years growing up. I mean, my parents just instilled that kind of give back notion. And so I've always been active in my community, but I will be very honest. I put a lot of energy into the Desert Tortoise Council. I put a lot of energy into other outdoor advocacy initiatives that I'm involved with. And I feel like I owe that to the community. Not everybody can do that. Not everybody has the ability to volunteer or to donate their time, and that's totally okay. But I do feel like I was able to make the time, and I feel like I have been, all the experiences in my life have led me to be a well-spoken person, to understand the importance of all the things that it takes. And so I just feel kind of obligated to use the voice that I have and the platform that I have to give back in that way. And it's a very delicate dance. A lot of the folks on the board of directors for the Tortoise Council are also environmental consultants. So we're often at odds. One of the big things that the Tortoise Council does is the Ecosystem Advisory Committee. We submit letters, and a lot of the letters are advocating against solar projects or types of projects that we might be working on. So I have to be very careful. I have to recuse myself and not participate or sign on to any letters for projects that I'm working on with my company. So it's a very fine line between making sure that the optics are good there. But I think most environmental consultants are there because they're passionate about habitats and wildlife and desert tortoises. And so it's only natural that we are out there on these projects. And some people wish we weren't. Some people want us to just give up. But I think it's critical that we keep the good biologists on these sites, because they're going to find people to do this work no matter what. And so I want it to still be people that care, people that know the science, people that are smart, that are watching everything happen. So it's something I struggle with all the time, Natalie. I'm sure just like you, I mean, we try so hard to conserve, but this is what more people should be doing. Like Natalie, you've got it down. You have to do environmental consulting, and you're out there and you're doing the science and you're doing the work, but you're also coming home and bringing that home with you and advocating in your community and using your voice to speak up for conservation initiatives in desert tortoises. That helps me sleep at night.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited to be able to have you on the show and share what it is that drives our mission as people passionate about protecting the desert. And really, it's the life that is overlooked to me in the desert that I just feel called to helping. And from coast to desert, we cover a lot in this show, and I'm just excited to bring some awareness to the tortoise and the threats that they face. And thank you for sharing, just your perspective on how you find that delicate dance between doing the consulting and then kind of using that to also pour your energy into the nonprofit side of things and the advocacy. And it's all interconnected. I mean, we have to survive, and there is money to be made in the desert tortoise world, but how can we bring that back forward to actually protect the animals? And that starts with community conservation and advocacy. Bottom line.
Absolutely.
I also think something important that you said is, maybe you don't necessarily want to be working in that field, and maybe they don't want you there either, but it's important that you guys are there. Like you said, it's important for these good biologists to be in these positions because you're the ones that are going to be, that are seeing it firsthand, So I think maybe it's a moral dilemma, but it ultimately is important. It's important that you guys are there. It's showing.
Otherwise, they would just bulldoze the desert and give no shits about what's in their path, which sometimes I feel like lately with the Joshua Tree, it feels like there's been a lot of difficulty around not building solar in a Joshua Tree old growth forest, for example. Like if we weren't there to make sure, advocating that the Joshua Tree Conservation Act be created, there would be no regulation around preserving that tree on the landscape. So it's definitely a moral dilemma and a delicate balance. And I think you're doing a great job at finding that balance. And that's why we're friends, because we both use our voices and we're passionate and mission driven, and it does matter. It's so important. And I'm glad that you're finding your way with Ironwood and that you feel aligned with your values as a person and with the company. That's great.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's very important to me for sure. We're lucky with tortoises. The plants are always harder.
Yeah, they are.
The plants are harder to get buy-in on. Even Joshua trees are so cool, but yeah, you get a little more buy-in when it's like a cute little animal.
It's true. Well, aren't tortoises considered one of the cutest, baby animals of all time? Like the little hatchlings?
They're so cute.
They're so cute. We'll have to show a picture when we release the episode, just how adorable they are. I mean, they're such special creatures.
Before we start wrapping up the conversation, I wanted to quickly ask you, you mentioned that you started in botany. What are some desert plants that you find are extremely important? And you just mentioned it's harder with the plants. What are you seeing in terms of the conservation with desert plants?
It's an interesting question. Think about that for a second. Yeah, plants are a lot more tricky to get buy-in on, and there's so many plants. So if you look at the number of plants and different species of flora and fauna out there compared to wildlife or compared to fauna, it's so great. And plants are very specific. A lot of times critters kind of roam, even if they don't go super far like a tortoise. Their range can be quite large, right? Because it goes with the habitat, but the plants are very specific. You'll have these unique little plants that only grow in one county or one city or one little part of one state. And so I think it's very challenging for a variety of reasons, but I think a big one is just because there's so many. There's so many plants. It's hard to get buy-in on all of them, and people love the plants in their backyard. It's easier with the animals because there's fewer of them and people have more interaction with them. So the plants are very challenging. Plants are facing just as many threats as anything else. As tortoise loss of habitat is huge. Here in Washington County and St. George, Utah, where I live, we're having huge issues with residential development on the outskirts of town in these areas that people would go out and say, there's nothing here. They're badlands. They just kind of look like nothing is there at certain times of the year. But then you come back in the spring and there's flowers everywhere. We have a dwarf bear poppy that grows here in St. George. It doesn't grow anywhere else in the entire world. But it's only up. It's only visible for like 10 days out of the year. And it's this beautiful, cute little flower. But people don't know. They want to take their motorcycles and their OHVs and just go out there because it's the dead, empty desert. And so it's tricky. It's tricky to get buy-in. There's so many of them. They're not present all the time. A lot of things are only visible certain parts of the year. So very challenging. Plants are hard. There's not as much money in the industry. It's hard. But I do love botany.
Is there like a desert plant bank that you know of? Like, are these seeds being harvested and saved?
Absolutely, yeah. There's all sorts of really great on the research side of things, on the academic side of things. There's a ton of stuff being done. There's a Seeds of Success Bank. We have national herbariums. We have regional seed collection facilities all over the West. So folks are definitely doing a really good job at researching all of the plant life in the desert, really anywhere outside. The research is there, the data is there, the seed collection is there. The missing component is, preventing habitat destruction.
I guess you just said the missing component is this conservation element, but is there a rehabilitation element that you know of that, is focused on replanting these native species?
Absolutely. There's all sorts of restoration programs out there. Park Service has some really fantastic resources. That when I worked in Zion National Park and Rocky Mountain National Park, they have greenhouses there and whole teams of biologists that go out and do restoration work in sensitive areas that have been kind of trampled. There's all sorts of really fantastic nonprofits out there in California. You guys have the California Native Plant Society. They do some fabulous work. Groups like the Mojave Desert Land Trust. People go out and pull weeds or plant new things or spray herbicides if you need to. There's all sorts of efforts happening out there at like a local and regional level. People are often passionate about plants at that smaller level. So there's a lot of good stuff happening for sure. It's just harder on like a bigger scale to kind of keep those checks and balances in place.
That makes sense. Well, it's good to hear that there's these efforts being made, though, in these other areas.
And on a state level, too, with with restoration efforts for plants. That's just as important in terms of conservation of tortoises, is restoring the environment that tortoises live in by replanting Joshua trees, desert globe mallow, whatever it might be, because ultimately these tortoises need plants to survive for diet, for water intake. And what does the conservation of tortoises really look like in terms of finding solutions to counteract the development and loss of habitat? Just so we can kind of end with some positivity and hope, because there are, unfortunately, there are a lot of threats to them. So what are some solutions, some conservation hope?
Yeah, it's really easy to get bogged down in the negative. And I do have a lot of concern and fear for desert tortoises. I wish that I could just say that they're on the up and up and everything's being done that needs to be done. But the reality is the population of the world is growing and our need for energy is growing. And there doesn't seem to be a lot of checks and balances in terms of the development that's happening out in the desert and the loss of habitat. It's very challenging. There are definitely groups out there doing some really fantastic research. The Desert Tortoise Council offers a whole variety of grants to folks that want to go out and do different types of research or conservation projects. There's a whole host of conservation nonprofits across the West that are working to really make things better. But as far as tangible items, for me, the biggest thing is to get involved at an advocacy level, because really the only thing, I don't want to say the only thing, one of the most important things to ensure the long-term viability of desert tortoises and their habitats, as well as really any wildlife out there, is making sure that policy remains the same. We've been working so hard to get these species protected, to really make the Endangered Species Act and the National Environmental, like NEPA process, really robust. And with everything happening right now, we're seeing a lot of these programs being attacked. We're seeing not a lot, but we're seeing some pushback to roll back environmental regulations and roll back protections. And so the biggest thing that we really all need to focus on right now is using the voice that we have to advocate for the places that we care about and the creatures that inhabit them. And that's great, because you can do that from your living room. You don't have to go out and be an intern, or there are some great volunteer activities. Mojave Desert Land Trust has some fabulous volunteer opportunities. National parks all have great volunteer opportunities. We share a lot of those on the Desert Tortoise Council social media, but we really need people to get involved at that advocacy letter. We need help writing comment letters to everything that's happening. We need people to call their senators and their representatives and to really remind folks how important it is that these environmental laws stay in place to protect the habitat for future generations. That's really the biggest thing that everybody can do right now, is to get involved at an advocacy level.
Amazing. We completely agree.
Advocacy is the way forward. I think that's a great way to kind of end on a positive note, is using our voices. That's such a message that we always come back to in this show. And it's empowering, because if you care about something, chances are other people will care because they see you caring about it. So it's like this ripple effect of positive energy towards something that really needs our help. And that is fulfilling. And that's where the passion for wildlife conservation kind of comes into play. It's like, okay, how are we taking this information and our own experiences in the field and bringing them out of that container of just being in the field and just being in an academic setting, and bringing it full circle so that people outside of your network who are maybe not a scientist, maybe just care about the environment, and how can you pull those people in and make them your ally and make them an ally for the desert tortoise?
Exactly. And you hit the nail on the head. If you are ever out on one of these surveys, you're hiking all day long. You're walking a line for 5 miles, and then you turn around and you walk the line 5 miles back, and you're walking really close to people, and it just turns into a complaint festival because it's hard. Like, what's going to happen. It's not what's best for the habitat, and it's so easy in those. I've heard so many people complain like, oh, they shouldn't do this. Oh, all the tortoises are dying. They shouldn't do solar. But the percentage of people that are out on these projects that say that take it to the next step and go home and advocate in whatever way that looks like, whether it's just liking social media posts or sharing them or attending volunteer events or going so far as to be on the board of an organization that you like. It's very, very small. So anytime I get in a conversation with people and they start complaining about things, I'm like, well, we always need more volunteers because you've got that spirit that we're looking for. And a lot of times it's crickets because people want to live their lives. I've got board meetings and it takes up a lot of time, and caring is hard.
Caring is hard, period.
I just want to be, some days I'm like, can I just be one of these people who's just like living their life? Dude, can just like,
I said that almost word for word yesterday. I was like, ignorance is really bliss because
it is.
I was literally like, my partner was like looking at the sky and he's like, what's that up there? And I'm like, oh, it's a chemtrail and it's actually really bad for all of us and it's polluting our soil. And they found all these, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, I wish I just didn't know what that was, but it's important.
It's a heavy weight.
Yeah. it's important that we do know these things, and we use our voice like you're saying, and maybe this positive ripple effect that Natalie is talking about can start rippling, make bigger waves.
Yeah.
It is rippling.
Absolutely.
That's what the Planet People community is all about. We really want to pull people into our network and see what a difference we can all make with a collective voice and advocate, right? We can talk about it and we can volunteer and we can be in the field, but we have to be about it on a bigger level in a policy way. And so many of our guests on the show, we had Alex Harper on last week, actually, and he was talking about that same component of advocacy. And that's something that I always come back to, because that's the action that we can all take, is using our voice. And that's where the hope is. That's where the hope is.
Exactly. It's really easy to complain. There's so much to complain about right now, but I definitely encourage everybody to think about ways that you can get involved and I used to say at a small level, but there's a lot going on right now, and we do really need people to get involved at a big level right now. Now is the time. We have a lot of work to do over the next 4 years as conservationists and lovers of wild spaces. And so, yeah, I definitely encourage everybody to get involved. And you guys are doing such a great job. I mean, I just, social media to me has revolutionized the conservation industry to me. I've been doing this for almost 20 years now. I've been caring about things like this since I was a teenager, and it's so much easier now to get our message out and to share, and not just your message, but your friends, your other organizations, that kind of like uplifting each other. So I love seeing y'all's posts. I appreciate. I know that you guys have collaborated on some videos with the Desert Tortoise Council. We love that. I love social media. I love the way that it makes it so much more accessible for people to get involved. So thank you guys for all that you're doing in the community.
Thank you.
Yes, the power of the platform to spread a message is unwavering in its impact. It can continue to really come full circle and spread that message so we can advocate on that big level that you're talking about. It's so important.
Absolutely.
And I just wanted to plug real quick, Tortoises of the World, this new textbook that came out. To our listeners who are tuning in, this is an important read if you do care about tortoises. And I'm actually featured in this textbook, and I'm bringing it up because I don't know if you've seen this, but I'm rocking the Desert Tortoise Council t-shirt in this photo, and it's pretty great. Did you? Did I show it to you? So. I forget. Yeah.
I think I saw it on the internet.
Yeah, it's somewhere on there, but it's just fun because I love representing groups that are making a difference, like the Desert Tortoise Council. And that's why I wanted to bring you on the show to talk about your story and what the council is doing to make such a difference. And hopefully, if people do read this textbook, they'll see the council t-shirt and be like, yes, time to get involved.
Yes. Thank you for that.
Gotta stay representing. Totally.
Thank you. Yeah, we appreciate that.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. And I'm excited for our listeners to hear all the different ways that they can get involved with caring for desert landscapes, the tortoise, and the Desert Tortoise Council.
Thank you so much for being here, Mary Lane. We've really loved listening to all of your amazing advice and experiences with the Desert Tortoise Council. And as an environmental consultant, you've done so much to give back to your community and to desert landscapes. Thank you for everything that you do.
Great. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for having me. This has been so much fun. The Desert Tortoise Council has so many good things going on. There's so many ways to get involved. We need all the help we can get. And we appreciate you guys taking the time to learn more about all the different things we're doing in the community.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mary Lane.
Bye.
And for our anxiety into action piece, we really wanted to provide you guys again with more resources. So the first thing we always say is check the show notes, because we list all of the things you need to know that we talk about in this episode. So with the Desert Tortoise Council, their website is linked, and you can really take a look at that website and see where you can get those certifications, trainings, even maybe find a mentor. It's so hard to get started in conservation, and having a mentor can be a really good first start. You can also volunteer with them. They have a symposium event once a year where they host hundreds of desert tortoise conservationists, desert enthusiasts alike throughout the Southwest, and they always need help putting on that event. They also need help with their committee. You can sign on as a board member if that's something that interests you and you want to get involved in a leadership kind of way.
I think the symposium event is a really good one, an easy one if you want to just get started. And this is just advice, I think, not just for conservation, but any career that you want to get into. Figure out what sort of events go on that's related to your career. And that is the absolute best way that you can network. It's the best way that you can learn new things about just your industry in general. And I think sometimes they are a little bit on the pricier side. So volunteering is the perfect way to get a free ticket and to kind of get yourself in the door. And a lot of times when you volunteer, you actually get a little bit more face-to-face time with panelists that are on these boards, because you are literally a volunteer there and working behind the scenes with these people. So sometimes it's just an even better opportunity than shelling out the big bucks to go to events like that. So I think volunteering for the symposium event is such a really just awesome piece of advice.
I love that. That's great advice, because it's that behind the scenes piece where you can do the networking that could really land your career.
Yeah.
I even volunteered for the symposium. I did it virtually. I couldn't attend the in-person one, but I loved it. They just needed help making content. If you like making content, help a nonprofit. Help the Desert Tortoise Council. You can get a free ticket to an event.
One thing we talk about with Mary Lane Poe, and we're seeing a theme here with other guests that we speak to as well, think about joining an advisory committee for your local wildlife commission. Figure out when they meet monthly, and they have these advisory boards, and you could be on one of them. Chances are there's not many people there, and your voice is 100% going to get heard. And even if you don't want to go and speak at first, just go and listen, join a meeting, and get involved with your local wildlife commissions.
I love that. Hopefully you guys find some of these action pieces helpful and that you enjoyed the episode. Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Planet People. We are thrilled to have you as part of our community of wildlifers who care about protecting the planet for future generations to enjoy.
We hope that by listening, you feel inspired to connect with nature and become a steward of the planet by getting involved and taking action with your local community conservation organizations. Until next time, stay positive, Planet People.
This episode was produced by Natalie Jean Sybil, Coral Carson, and Hugh Carr. Directed and edited by Coral Carson. Theme song by Hugh Carr under the artist name Flama. Thank you, team.